Welcome to today's episode of Getting to Know You. My name is Cameron Edward Benton, and on today's episode, I have the great privilege of interviewing Kim Winder, the creator of the RedDot comics. This is one of my favorite comics on the internet, and Kim's comics are a fun combination of humor, sexuality mixed with the personal. You can find them all over the internet, from Reddit to YouTube to TikTok, but particularly on Instagram, where she has over 450,000 followers. This interview is a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of depth, and there's even some tears near the end of the episode. We go over everything from her beginnings and starting off creating comics just for herself, and then seeing this take off and turning into a full-blown career. It's a powerful form of self-expression for her, and she is an incredibly touching and beautiful human being. Near the end of the episode, we do get into some talking about her mental health challenges that she has dealt with in the past, including an attempt at suicide. So if you are sensitive to that topic, just please be aware of that ahead of time. She shares incredibly vulnerably so that anybody else who might be struggling with something similar can see that there is, in fact, hope on the other side. And per Kim's words, if you are struggling with something like that, don't do it. Get help, and you are loved, even if you don't necessarily feel that way. Kim is, again, just an absolute beautiful human to get to know. We laugh a lot on this podcast, and I hope that you absolutely enjoy it. And without further ado, here is this wonderful episode of Getting to Know You with Kim Winder. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's been super awesome. I was super excited when you said that you were down to do this, because I've been, I think, following the RedDot for 2 or 3 years now, and it's one of my favorite comics on Instagram. And anybody who follows me on comics or on Instagram knows that I really like a lot of Instagram comics, because I'm always like reposting and resharing them, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, you're the dude who's really into comics." Because I don't know, I grew up on comics. I loved reading like Garfield as I would go to sleep, every night, or just looking for the newspaper, and I would, kind of dig for those, or just spend hours at Borders or Barnes and Nobles, just kind of in those sections. And I don't know, it's been really cool to have this joy that you and so many of these other creators have brought to my life. So I guess before we jump in, just thank you for that. It's been really, really cool.
Well, I appreciate it. 2 or 3 years. You've been you've been around for a while, so that's like that's like most of my comic life. So that's awesome.
Yeah. How did you get into comics? Were you always creating different comics, and was that like a process you've been kind of working on and refining for a while, or is it something that you were just like, yeah, let me just try this one day and see what happens? Or how did you find that?
Well, like when I was a kid, I actually had a notebook, like a spiral notebook, and in
Mm,
middle school, I made these like one panel comics, and it was before social media. So I would draw it and then I would send it around the classroom, and people
mm,
would write notes if they liked it or not.
mm-hmm.
And I wish I still had them. I don't,
That's really
but
cool.
yeah, that was kind of the start. Then fast forward to 2018, and I never really stuck with a hobby. I dabble. Like I get into
Mm-hmm.
something and I throw my heart into it for like 3 weeks, and then I'm done with it.
Mm-hmm.
So 2018 happened, and I decided, well, I want to stick to a hobby, and I already love drawing. So I want to draw every day, and I want to make it kind of like a comic-y thing, because I can do whatever I'm thinking about. And to stay accountable, I want to post it online.
Hmm.
So that's what I did. Every day for 2018, I drew a comic, but I didn't actually end up posting until like March, because I was so fucking scared. But like I didn't think anyone was going to follow in the first place. But
Mm.
if you scroll early enough, it is rough.
Mm.
It is not good.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's how it started, and then it kind
Mhm.
of snowballed to what it is now.
Wow. When you were doing that, did you give yourself any sort of like a cutoff point where you're like, yeah, I'm going to keep posting until, oh, I guess you said the year. So is that kind of like your deadlines? Like, I'm at least doing a year. And then if I hit a year, then I don't want to do this, you can kind of stop, or like, is that how you built it out?
Pretty much. It was 7 new drawings a week. So every
Wow.
day there had to be something.
Hmm.
And towards the end of 2018, George Takei's website featured me, and
Oh,
I blew up a lot, like a
wow.
lot. So after then, like huge ego boost on my
Hmm.
part, and I'm like, oh shit, there's something to this. So
Yeah.
I just kept going.
Wow. Wow. So if you didn't get that boost from Sakai's website at the time, do you feel like you would have kept going at that point, or did you have like enough like enjoyment and I guess whatever else you needed to keep going? You think, or was it did that kind of like really push you over the hump, if you will?
You know what? I probably I want to say I would keep going,
Hmm.
knowing how lazy I am. Maybe not,
Well, you're not that
but
lazy if you made it a whole year. Like if you just did a month and then you had a huge boom or something like that. But a year's a long commitment. That's not easy.
yeah, it there was definitely like I could. What was nice about social media as well is looking back and being like, oh my goodness, I am getting better because I could always copy. Like,
Hmm.
I could draw Disney characters, I could draw anime, like, I could copy other people's work. I didn't have my own
Hmm.
style. So, trying to figure out my own style and develop, and I could visibly see each comic or drawing and be like, I remember consciously thinking, no, the head shape shouldn't be like that. Or, no, why the fuck am I doing pastels? I don't like pastels. Like, and I yeah, I think I would continue just because like there was that gratification in development, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it
Yeah.
sounds like, if I'm understanding right, like partly because you were essentially logging it in a very visual way, you're able to really like see like, oh, like I have this progress. It makes me think of like if you've ever done like a workout program or a dieting program, right? You can kind of look back at your log and be like, oh yeah, I've lost this much weight, or I've, gained this much muscle or whatever it is over time.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like with weight loss too, it just feels like so much fucking work every day. So when you see progress, it doesn't like I should be ripped by now. And
Yeah. Yeah.
with the drawing, like some days I was on top of it, other days I totally phoned it in, but
Mm.
the gradual progression was really motivating.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Uh, is there anything any like advice that you would give to like an artist or any sort of content creator with, if they're wanting to create or develop their own thing, that you would give to yourself that maybe you wish you had when you started?
My base response to that is unfortunately, you have to do it every day.
Hmm.
If you don't post, the algorithm nowadays will sacrifice you. They don't give a fuck. If you're not feeding the beast, they're going to throw you to the side, which sucks because it it doesn't always like you can make something amazing and then not post for a day and then no one sees it even though it was
Hmm.
doing very well. But on the flip side, creatively, it's just keeping at it like a
Hmm.
workout. If you run a mile, maybe tomorrow you can run a mile and a half and you
Yeah,
just make that slow progress. So keeping at it is really important.
yeah, cool. I'm curious with, especially since you've been on social media and you're primarily on Instagram, right? Are you on like any other platforms at the moment?
Oh, I'm everywhere. I
You
even
are.
have a Be Real, which is very boring because, like, every time it's like, "Oh, post your Be Real." I'm like, "I'm sitting on my fucking couch drawing." Like, no one cares. It is the same view of my feet and my iPad every time.
That's funny.
But yeah, I'm on Reddit and Twitter and Facebook
Got it.
and Mastodon ever since Twitter
Okay.
decided to be what Twitter is now.
Whatever it is at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I gotcha.
that's another thing is I say I'm a shameless self-promoter, and
Hmm.
I think that's important.
Hmm.
Like, there's nothing wrong in hyping yourself up, and I will shamelessly plug, pun intended,
I was
everything
about to
I
say.
do. Oh, I'm
Well, which
on
maybe that's.
YouTube too. That
Oh,
was
are you?
it.
Okay. Cool.
YouTube and
Cool.
TikTok. Yeah.
Awesome. I was gonna ask a question about social media, but I feel like for those of, I guess, the listeners who maybe don't get the why the plug is a pun, Can you talk to us about Gary B. Plug and like how did you come up with that character? Like he's very beloved and seems like very much your best friend within the comics at least. So yeah, I would love to hear about that. Where did that come from?
So Gary was like super early on, and I was trying to be more shocking than I am
Mm,
nowadays. Like, I had a comic, I think he came after, but I had a comic where Sully from Monsters Inc.
hmm
revisits Boo, but
hmm
now she's like an OnlyFans content creator,
Oh
and
yeah,
he comes in at the,
I remember
yeah.
seeing that one. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that did really well. What other things can I fuck around with? And I'm
Hmm.
like, what if the Beast Castle had a butt plug? And what if the butt
Mm.
plug didn't want to go back? And that was Gary.
Awesome.
And then it
Yeah.
just slowly evolved into Gary's now my butt plug
Hmm.
and more of a inner moral compass. That's how I
Yeah.
treat him.
He's like your Jiminy Cricket.
Pretty much better.
Yeah. Awesome. And for your I guess your developmental process with this stuff, it sounds like a lot of it because you were doing it so actively was kind of being like, well, let me test this, let me see what's having a response with the audience and what's not. Like, how do you kind of I guess balance that I guess desire to feed the beast and the algorithm and make do what's popular, what's hitting, versus kind of like I guess doing your own what you feel is enjoyable or creative.
That's a good question. There are some days where I am just so not into it. Actually, today is a good example. Like, I made a comic about me buying a pink pineapple, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the trope of pineapple makes cum taste better.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my sexual comics do very well.
Mm-hmm.
But I just was not feeling it today. I didn't want to draw it, but to feed the beast, and I know it was going to do well, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also, I guess when you're creating something and you have like a really deep gut feeling like I don't care if this bombs, I need to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comic about a person who passed away early and they don't move on into the afterlife because they saw their partner grieving, and then they waited for their partner, but their partner moved on in real life, and then when the partner passed away, the partner left with their new spouse.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I had in my head. I don't know if it was from a movie or whatever, but it's a thought I think everyone has. But I had to do it. I stayed up all night drawing. Like, my husband actually came out and said, "Go to bed." I'm like, "No." You no. It I know this probably won't do well, but I need to finish it. It was important to me, and it did great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It was really touching. I saw that that comic. It's yeah, beautiful.
thank you. Like, it just,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some projects that I've also done that don't do well, but emotionally, emotionally, I feel like I came. Like, I got it out. I feel
Yeah.
good about it. It doesn't matter that no one likes it. I'm
Mm.
happy with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's dope. I think that's one of the things that I've always I think really enjoyed about your comics because you're there's a lot of really great comics that I love on Instagram, but I think with yours in particular, there's such a personal element to it. I think both with you sharing your life, but there's also like a level of I don't know how to explain it other than there. I guess there's a level of depth I think that is like very human in the comics. That is because your comics, while a lot of them are obviously very funny, but they can have a very like touching element to it where they're not just like pure humor or pure whatever. It's like you can be like, oh yeah, it's like I totally relate to this experience, or I'm kind of captivated and kind of want to see what's happening, with these little group of people and friends, or what's going on with your various meetings of the minds, or these, very kind of deep and interpersonal elements, which I think is a really cool space. Was that something that like, I don't know, it came from you naturally? Was it something that just developed over time from that kind of inner voice needing to come out, like you said?
I think because I wasn't expecting the comic to get as big as it was, I was just
Mm.
very open about me in the first place.
Yeah.
Like sharing that I had a sibling pass away and
Mm.
making a drawing on the anniversary of her passing and just talking about myself. I honestly did not think anyone was going to see it. So I had no problem putting it out there. Like if it's
Yeah.
found by like Gen Alpha 40 years from now, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to be in a nursing home. I it just was kind of always there, and then I really am surprised by people caring about it because
Mm.
I'm not that interesting. I'm really not. So no, I don't. I forgot the question.
Yeah, well, it sounds like from what I'm hearing is that you know, I would say the more emotional or personal tone to your comics really came from the fact that you didn't really expect it to go anywhere. So it kind of in a way freed you up to put in yourself because you weren't really worried or concerned about those kinds of things, and then that kind of became like an element that ironically made you popular and unique and blow up.
That yes, I am terrible with words. The fact that you invited me on a podcast for me to speak, um, but yeah, you're right about that. Just putting myself out there early on and not expecting anything from it because it feels like nowadays everything's so performative. And I don't know if you've seen the trends on like TikTok where people set up a camera and then they're crying over a dead snake or like they had a
Mm,
patient pass. But it's like, we know you had to set that up, guys. Like, that's not
yeah.
a raw moment. So, getting to draw stuff in the moment, I feel that it's much more real, I guess. Like
Mm-hmm.
when my husband was very ill a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and all I could do was drink, cry, and sleep or draw. And I drew, and it did a lot for me, but I guess I'm like contradicting myself. Like it is performative because I'm drawing it out, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess from my own counterpoint, it's like that's art has always been like that. Like
Hmm.
art is like, I mean, how many songs and how many movies and how many books are written about these things that we go through because that's for whatever reason as human beings, like right, we put things, we take our heart and we put it into some sort of physical object or a painting or a song, and that's how we like deal with it, right? And we share it with others because we want to connect with other people's pains and our own pain, and like we're all born with this weird fact that like we know we're going to die, right? We're born with this like
Yeah.
collective trauma and are sharing in this sort of tragedy in a way, right? We're all kind of born into a Greek tragedy where we were told by the prophets like we're going to die at some point, and we do all these things to maybe try to battle that, but we're at the end of the day are doomed to that fate.
Yeah.
So I think art and has always been this way of creating and sharing, and I don't know if that's performative or not, but I think it's human.
I agree. And I don't want to shit on anyone like who has done that because like there is catharsis in seeing people act out your worst moments and
Mm-hmm.
relating to it. It's just something rings false when it's like an actual beloved person of theirs. That's how I
Mm.
feel. It I don't want to sound like a bitch. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think it's super valid. I think I think like social media is such a weird and interesting thing, and we're still so much, even though it's I guess been around for over 10 years now, it's like still so much in its infancy of what it'll eventually be, right? And so it's we deal with, I guess, learning and seeing what's fake, seeing what's real, seeing what actually matters. Like I think like personally, like COVID and social media, that combination, like really kind of we hit sort of I forget what the term is called, like a singularity point, basically, where there was so much craziness and so
Mm,
much like polarization that everybody was just like, okay, like all of this is just bullshit for lack of a better word. And there is something more going on here. Like the amount of different conversations that I started having one-on-one with people versus people just like showing up bumper stickers on their Instagram or Twitter feeds or whatever it might be, like started going through the roof. Like I started connecting with like old friends who be like, oh, I thought they were like on this other side of the fence. Or, I would go to raves or festivals and start meeting people and having these conversations. And it was like, oh, this is deeper. And everybody that I go to these places are like, oh yeah, all of this stuff is just ridiculous. And it's like not what we actually want or what we actually believe. And you talk to most people in my experience, and they're far more rational and far more nuanced and complex than what you actually kind of see in the,
Oh
blogosphere, if you
yeah.
will.
Oh no, you're totally right because like if you text something, you could totally mean it as a joke and someone reads it on the other end of the planet and be like, "What an asshole," you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Like there's
yeah.
a lost in translation bit where when you're in person you can pick up on the vibe of the other person you're talking to. So uh, it's just it's been interesting and I think you're right. COVID has definitely shifted a lot of people's perspective of being online, like all the celebrities singing that one song. I don't even remember the song, but it was just
I
kind
don't
of
know this.
like it was Gal Gadot. Gal
Okay.
Gadot.
Yeah,
She
yeah. Wonder
started,
Woman.
yeah, she started like this chain of all these celebrities singing this one song that was supposed to be very moving and bring us all together, but it was all these celebrities in their mega mansions like we're all in this together. I'm like, you're in Malibu. I'm sharing a house with four other people and two bathrooms. Like
Yeah.
it's different, you
Right,
know?
right. Yeah, yeah.
So
I think a lot of social media and a lot of COVID has kind of realized various people in all kinds of walks of life, like a various, privilege or just living in our own bubbles and our own worlds and kind of really being disconnected from the actual people
mhm,
that are going through things. Yeah.
for sure.
Cool. Cool. Where were you born originally?
That's a pivot. I was born in Carson City, Nevada. So I grew up in
Okay.
Nevada and lived there until I was like 22, 20, yeah, 22. And then I moved to Southern California.
Okay. And you're in LA currently, or what part?
Orange County. So
Orange County?
like
Okay.
yeah, right by like the Orange Curtain, everyone calls it.
I don't.
So
Where's that? What like city is like the Orange Curtain? Is that like Fullerton or Orange or like Anaheim or?
yeah, like Orange, right on the edge, like Yorba Linda,
Okay.
that kind of
Oh, okay.
area.
Cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My family's. I have a lot of family in Fullerton, so maybe we'll
Oh,
have to go and
nice.
get like coffee or something and come out and visit them.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, be super down.
I I love Orange County. Like there is like the show Arrested Development is based around
Mm-hmm.
Irvine, and
Mm-hmm.
it is very true. That Newport, Irvine, it's all true. But there's also like so many wonderful people here. I love it. And then I just can't do the vibe of LA all the
Mm-hmm.
time in
Yeah.
the bigger city, but we're so
Mm-hmm.
close, I can get that if I want to.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
pretty close to there. Yeah, I lived in LA for 8 years, and it was a lot. I lived right on Hollywood Boulevard for like in the heart of Hollywood, like right across from a bar called No Vacancy. And like every night at 3 a.m., just like cars all out, get out of my job, working at a restaurant. And, there's cars just all in front of my driveway. I have to like ask the Uber drivers to move out of the way every night and sleep
Oh,
year round with my air conditioning unit on just to drown out the noise from outside. It's just like definitely, I live in Seattle now, and I definitely prefer the pace out here a lot more.
what about the weather? How do you feel with the dreariness?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's dreary right now out here because it's winter. Although this winter has been awesome for what it's worth. Like we've had a lot of more sunshine. Last year was awful. It was literally like winter and dreary and dark until like 2 days after the summer solstice. So
Oh
till
my
like a
god.
midway. Yeah, it was awful. But that was by far the worst one. And usually like by like mid March, like there's a good amount of sunshine. You get cherry blossom season. The spring out here, when you get spring, like last year we didn't really get spring, is just
Mhm.
the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Honestly, it helped me a lot because I moved here right before COVID, and then I would take walks when COVID happened and it was just spring, and I would see like all of these flowers. Then I was just like, I grew up in Southern California, so I never saw spring like this, right? It's just like I'm seeing all these flowers I've never seen before, plants, beautiful, different birds and butterflies, and just all these things. And it was just gorgeous. It helped me a lot get through COVID, just being able to walk around in my neighborhood and see things I've never seen before.
Oh, neat. Like, my dad lives up in Tacoma. He's like
Okay. Yeah.
between Tacoma and Seattle. I
Okay.
haven't been up
Yeah.
to visit yet, but I think one thing about Southern California is I really hate the lack of variety in the seasons.
Hmm.
Like, we have the Santa Ana winds, which fucking suck.
Just like that's my least favorite weather attribute is wind. So yeah,
Oh
not my
my
thing.
god. Yeah, we got that, and then we got fire season, and they kinda coincide. Other than that,
Yeah.
it's beautiful year round, and that's great until it's, like, Christmas, and I
Hmm.
want a little bit of cold, and it's
Yeah.
80,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I definitely prefer it. I mean, the winters can be rough, but like for me, it's like you just get out of the state a couple times during the winter, and it kind of helps with it. If
Mhm.
it's a winter like this, it's really not bad at all. And then like the summers are so beautiful out here that they literally call it the Seattle Trap, because you makes you forget completely about the winters, and you're just like, this is the best place to live ever. And then like winter comes back around, and you're miserable a little
Yeah.
bit. But the summers are just so gorgeous that you wouldn't want to live anywhere else. So yeah, I definitely prefer the variety and just like the crispness of the air. I kind of like the cooler climate compared to LA. Like when I come back to visit and my family in Orange County or other places, just like it's so like hot and dry all the time and just kind of looks the same and everything's kind of yellow. Where in Seattle everything is green and there's water everywhere, and I don't know, just
Mhm.
more my vibe.
I totally get it. Right now, like, we got a lot of rain the past month or so, and the canyon and, like, off the 241 and stuff, it's all green. It looks like fucking
Hmm.
Ireland, and it's
Wow.
gorgeous.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's all gonna be brown in 2 months,
Yeah.
which is a
Very quickly.
bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were born in Nevada, moved to California, and then like what were you doing before you became a professional Instagram comic artist?
Um, well, I was a lifeguard for about, like, 8 years. It was my first ever job,
Hmm.
and then I moved to California thinking I wanted to be a big girl and I want an office job, and I kick myself thinking about it now because being a lifeguard's fucking great. It was fun. I love swimming. But I became an office manager and worked for a makeup company headquarters for some time in their customer service, and then went back to office managing. And it was good. It was a smaller company, but I got fired. My boss was a dick, just plain and simple. Like, I've already said this on social media. I don't mind repeating it. But I got fired for calling him out, and I kind of fell into doing comics full time. I was already doing it, so
Mm,
it was kind of a blessing in disguise. But I was
yeah.
just like a business professional. I got my degree in graphic design, already saw how saturated the market was. Like, I'm never going to make it anywhere in this,
Mm,
and might as well just put my admin skills to work.
got it.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you just sort of got, I want to say, the fortune of being let go at the right time with, I guess, the red dot taking off enough for you to kind of support yourself with that.
Yeah, it was kind of a dual income thing for a while. Like, I would be at work doing my thing on my breaks, drawing under my desk, and then going back to work, coming home, making dinner, draw, go to bed, wake up, go to work, and repeat.
Got it.
So,
Wow.
really hitting the grind pretty hard for a while, which is
Yeah.
good. Like, I thrived off of it.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
And if you're open to talking about this, like, how does one or how do you like actually make money from like the red dot? Because obviously Instagram, I don't think they pay creators or anything at this point. So like, is it mostly through like Patreons and merch and things of that nature?
99% of my income is Patreon.
Wow.
Instagram does pay nowadays,
Oh,
but
wow.
it's for reels and it's
Mm,
bonuses. It's not
hmm.
like not like YouTube or TikTok where it's viewership based or ad
Yeah.
based. And there's already talks about them stopping that. So that's not
Mm.
a hard line
Yeah.
um, payment plan, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, Patreon has been very good to me. Obviously, you have to keep your patrons happy by
Hmm.
offering incentives. So I have bonus content, and I'm not going to lie, I already do sexy stuff on the general. So I have
Hmm.
even more sexy stuff on Patreon.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I don't mind doing it. Actually, it feels very liberating to be
Mm.
fully sexual in that way that's also funny and makes money, but I feel a little bit not secure, but I just feel more comfortable sharing my sexuality that way than my body. Not that I have anything wrong with it. Totally
Yeah.
would do it if I thought my body would do it, but I don't. Like 100%. Obviously, it's a talk with hubs, but I like drawing, so it works for me.
Yeah. No, I think that that's awesome, and that's maybe a good segue into a question I have is like
Mhm.
your I think your comics and like your self expression through comics with your sexuality is such a a playful and kind of big part of the Red Dot. Like, was that something you've always been really comfortable with, or is that something that came from just doing the comics enough and you got really comfortable with? Or like, I think it's really cool that you're so, I would say, free in that aspect of your expression.
It was originally it was rebellion.
Hmm.
I grew up very conservatively. I was baptized when I was 7. I was in a Baptist church. My family is still very conservative,
Hmm.
and I just felt like I couldn't be honest with my sexuality
Hmm.
before making the comic. So again,
Hmm.
didn't think anyone was going to see it, so just like I'm going to throw it out there. And having fun with sex is a great thing, and I already think that the sexuality is dominated in a male focused kind of way. So
Hmm.
to talk about sexuality from my point of view as a woman who is very open to all genders, like
Hmm.
if it's legal and I'm attracted to you, let's do it. Like of course, like both ways. But
Right. Obviously.
yeah, but like explain or expressing my sexuality from a feminine side and not just for a male gaze, but for myself was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And have with going down that route, have you gotten a lot of like pushback, like from your family and from I guess people in your past life? Like, have you dealt with that world?
Family, yeah. But with the notation that they are happy that I'm doing something that makes me happy, that provides
Hmm.
for my family.
Hmm.
We just don't talk about it. Like they know Gary, they've bought Gary plushies, but no one talks about what Gary is.
Yeah.
So they're supportive. We don't talk about it. And then when it comes to like my sexual history, like I've been very focused on being mum about previous sexual partners
Hmm.
or my love life. If I like I have shared parts of my love life, but I've kept it vague because one, most of them I'm not in contact anymore. And I want to respect their privacy. I don't know
Yeah.
their side of our relationship. I'm not
Hmm.
perfect.
Yeah.
So I haven't received pushback there, but I think it's because I've purposely want to respect their their thoughts and their opinions, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, has anybody ever reached out to you from like a sex toy company to be like, we want to make an actual like Gary B plug butt plug?
No, and I really want it, but I've had several companies give me toys. Like I have so many sex toys. Like I have gifted them out for Christmas. I have like them waiting in reserve like if one dies. Like so many. Like I have a closet full and I love it. Don't
Wow,
get me
that's
wrong.
so funny.
Yeah,
Are they given from like fans or from like companies?
companies. I don't think I
Companies.
would take any from fans just because. it just can't be verified, the cleanliness. But
That's valid.
yeah, but so many toys, love them, and
That's funny.
it's yeah. My husband's like, I got one shipment, and it like totally covered our kitchen island,
Oh my
and
god.
they sent me everything that they had:
Wow.
male toys, female toys, couples toys, and I took out this fleshlight that was made for men, and I was just putting my finger in it because I wanted to know. Comes home at the worst time, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is his butthole, man. Like this is this guy's. This is a nice butthole." And he's like, "Does it have to be in the kitchen?" I'm like, "How else am I going to send a picture to my best friend?" Like,
Oh, that's so
it was
funny.
great.
That's super cool. Do you when you get those, do you get offered like sponsorship deals and that kind of thing too, where it's like, hey, yeah, if you just plug the sex toy in a comic or that kind of thing, or are they just gifts to give you?
I've had gifts, and then one company, Sweet Vibes.
Mhm.
It's in San Diego, female owned, operated, which I love.
Cool.
I did a sponsorship with them back in 2020, and I made a comic for a new
Mm,
toy, and they sent me tons of stuff. So kind
wow.
of both. Definitely recommend. I use their lube to this day. Like I
Hmm.
buy it personally because I
Mhm.
like it so much. I think it's called Drip or Drop, Drip or Drop. I'm sure if you go on their website, you'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Cool.
great
Cool.
stuff.
Awesome. Do you have any? Because I grew up really conservative Christian too, and have struggled a lot over the course of my life and like becoming more and more comfortable with my own sexuality. I know there's a lot of people of let's say like our generation. How old are you, by the way? You're like around 30-ish, right?
32.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just turned 34 yesterday. If it makes you feel any
Oh,
better.
happy
Uh,
birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And it seems like there's a lot of I would say like millennial former Christians or deconstructed Christians or whatever term you want to use for that that are I find go through so much of the same thing. I mean, we were raised with purity culture on top of sort of just the normal religious type of thing.
Hmm.
For people who don't know what that is, it's literally like there were groups of us that would like sign like purity pledges and like
The
these
purity
things of like
rings.
yeah, purity rings. And like in my church, like there were people that were like, we're not going to even kiss until we're married, and just this whole like thing. So I'm curious, like, how did you develop, I guess, that comfortability within your own sexuality? I guess even just like, in your personal life, or is it something that you just kind of just stepped in through, or like how did you develop that?
I've always been very sexual. I
Hmm.
don't know when it really started. I One of my first favorite movies was The Moulin Rouge
Hmm. Yeah,
with,
loved it.
yeah, Nicole Kidman, Ian McGregor. It was just like, they're artists, they like fucking, they're singing great ass songs. Like, I am totally there, but I'm not a theater kid.
Mm,
So, like, just kind of growing up around that and then being told at the same time, like, hold a penny in between your knees when I go on a
mm,
date, and not being told why, and then realizing, oh, it's so I don't spread my legs for a date. Like, that,
mm,
it rubbed me the wrong way. And I got
mm,
really disenchanted with religion as I grew
mm,
up. Not necessarily the idea of a God, but how we bastardize it for the greedy and the power
mm.
hungry, you know?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was, like I've mentioned, rebellion. Like, I'm going to
Mhm,
celebrate me. Why would God
mm.
give me all this fun stuff to play with and then tell me no?
Yeah.
So, uh, kind of like that. Like, my family is still very religious for the most part.
Mm,
I am not. I'm on the border of agnostic, atheist. When my husband was
mm,
really sick, he was supposed to die, and in a moment of I don't know, desperation, manic, I was alone. I was quarantined. My husband was intubated. I was with no one. And I
yeah.
reached out on social media. I'm like, just send good vibes to my husband.
Mhm.
And I only found out later after the fact, he only had like a 4% chance of surviving, and he lived. but like all the well wishes we got, there has to be something in the universe
Yeah.
heard everyone thinking about him. And that's the only reason why I'm like, maybe there is something. But
Hmm.
when it comes to organized religion, I am not there. And I am sorry, I'm
Yeah.
not going to put any money into a plate ever again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it's ambiguous for the most part.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. How do you I don't know, how do you, I mean, I guess you just talked little bit about it. How do you relate to Christianity and that, I guess, aspect of your life currently? Like, do you look back on it with any sort of like regret or like remorse? I guess you seem to have like a pretty strong, like rebellious inner energy. It sounds like you kind of just like, once it wasn't working for you, you were just like, ah, fuck this, I'm going to go this way. But yeah, I'm just curious if you, because I always noticed for myself, I guess for context, like I almost feel like I have this void of my life because I was very like in the church, like all through up until about like 18, when I went to
Yeah.
college, and my college experience allowed me to really start deconstructing things, but was very much in the church, all the way through 18. And a lot of times I look back on this part of my life and I'm just like, I almost feel like this void because I don't, yeah, I don't listen to any of the music that I listened to back then, which was a lot of bad Christian rock and worship music, and all these things that I'm just like, I really don't connect to any of these things anymore. And a lot of the relationships that I have like from the church are just not really there in my life anymore. And so it's always like this weird energy, that I almost like don't quite feel the same as I had like an adolescent or a childhood type of experience, like most other people that I meet have.
Sure. When I look back on it, the people in the church and the people that I went to church with are good people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have no problems with anyone that devotes themselves to a religion, or if that's their way for them. My biggest
Mm-hmm.
problem was growing up and just seeing the bullshit of people being taken advantage of, or like the scandals and the abuse that can happen, frankly. Like,
Yeah.
people dedicate their lives to a community and they're robbed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't sit well with me. But looking back on it, like the people I went to church with, my pastor that baptized me, that buried my sister, that married me to my first husband, was a good man, and I know had no ill intentions. But it's just
Yeah.
the what happened. Like, why the fuck is the Catholic Church so fucking rich?
Yeah.
It.
No, it's crazy. Yeah, it's really,
Yeah.
really crazy when you look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the people or anything, and I wish everyone well. Like, my mom still goes to church. I will participate in prayer in a way, like, I'm not going to say fuck you, I'm leaving the room. Like, yeah, so the people aren't bad. I look back on it like they're good people, but just it, it's encroaching and awful how people who need God the most are taken advantage of the most. That's what I don't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's, I think, a totally valid point. I think I saw like on like a Joe Rogan clip or something like that. Just they were mentioning how crazy it is to think about like the level of sexual abuse that we know that has happened through the Catholic Church, and that it still is just like seen as this like very powerful, like there's been like no repercussion for any of it, right? And it's just like no other organization would be able to like withstand something like that, but somehow that has.
It Yeah, it's totally accepted. And then
Yeah.
I I keep telling my husband, like, half jokingly, I'm a Satanist, because the Satanic Temple, they have tenets that I agree with. Like, you don't harm others unless they harm you, and by harming them, it's you're just not going to help them out or expect one's bodily autonomy. It's a troll. It's really
Mm-hmm.
just a troll on the worst parts of organized religion, where they want to take away rights, where the Satanic Temple is just like, you do you, do not hurt others. That's it. So it's all just a game. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. 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 Which I'm curious, is that how much have you explored like with Satanism? Is it just kind of like looking at like reading about stuff online, or like how did you? Because you have joked about it before in your comics before, so I'm curious, like how
Mhm.
did you go into it, or what level of exploration you've had with it?
Well, I have the devil in my comics like half as a
Mm-hmm.
joke. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's almost turned into a buddy character where it's more wholesome than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But when
he's a
it
very adorable devil.
yeah, I like him. He like in my mind he's queer and like I'm having brunch with Satan. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
the first person that comes to mind. But
Mm-hmm.
what I haven't actually like delved into like joining the Satanic Temple. And then there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan. That's where the
Hmm.
dark magic, we're going to
Hmm.
do the weird shit that I don't believe in. I'll read about it. It's interesting. I like that kind of like true
Hmm.
crime, Adam LaVey. That's interesting, but I have no
Yeah,
interest in actually
and yeah,
participating.
got it.
Satanic
Huh.
Temple is more of a pro rights group that
Huh, that's interesting.
adopted, yeah, they adopted the Satan image as a troll. Like if
Mm-hmm.
someone wants to put up the 10 Commandments as a statue, they want a statue of, oh, Beelzebub and some kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just want equal opportunity. If we're going to talk about freedom of religion and you want to put up the 10 Commandments, we're going to put up this guy. Same with
Yeah.
if you want to put up a statue of the Quran. Like it,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, totally.
yeah,
It's yeah. If what I'm hearing you correctly is that they're basically exposing a lot of hypocrisy
yes,
through religion. It's kind of like the spaghetti monster, right? Or the flying spaghetti
yes,
monster, where it's like, oh yeah, okay, well we have to talk about all belief systems and science. Well then, here's my belief system of a flying spaghetti monster creating the universe.
yeah. And they put their money where their mouth is. Is like they've given to women's rights, like pro-choice
Hmm.
and stuff like that. I am all for it. So everything that I have read about, because I wouldn't just randomly say I'm a Satanist. Like
Mm-hmm.
they back up their beliefs or what they talk about. So it's
Yeah.
really
Huh.
nothing to do with God and good versus evil. It's like, no, this is a check and balance here
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. I'm actually I forget the guy's name off the top of my head, but I'm taking a course by this creator on Instagram who is also a scholar and PhD in like biblical studies.
Hmm.
And he's teaching a course tomorrow. Maybe I'll send you the link if you want to join. But it's on Satan and the Bible. So it's like literally looking at like the literary text and character of Satan, like throughout the history of the Old Testament and the New Testament. And he's like a very, very good scholar. And I was a biblical studies major in college. And so like I to the point where you're like reading the Greek text and stuff. And he's like one of those people who's like not just reading like the consensus of the Greek text, but like knows how to read specific manuscripts of which the Greek text that we refer to now is like kind of collaborated into and stuff. So he's like a very, very deep scholar and very smart. But yeah, I'll send you over the link on Instagram or something if you want to check it out.
Oh, I'm totally into that because, like, in the Old Testament, like, the serpent is never
Mm-hmm.
identified as Satan or the devil.
Mm-mm.
It is the serpent. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, where did we get lost in translation that that was the devil? And the devil
Mm-hmm.
got kicked out because he wanted equal representation among the angels. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would be very interested. Yes, please.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll send it to you. Yeah, it's like he's doing it like a minimum like dollar donation. You can give more if you want to, but it's a Zoom Plus and stuff. So yeah, I'll send it over to you.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, we interrupt this podcast for a quick request. One, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button below. It would mean the absolute world for me. And if you like these kinds of guests, these types of conversations, it makes it easier for you to continue to get these types of videos. Really, really helps the channel out, and I appreciate it a ton. Two, if you really, really like the podcast, please share this with somebody. Share it via whatever method works for you. You can find this on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you can get a podcast. And three, if you have any questions, feedback, comments, ideas, etc., please hit me up on either Instagram or drop some comments in the comment box below. It really helps me out, really helps out the podcast and everything else that I'm doing. And without further ado, we are back to the podcast. I'd love to for you, if you want to talk a little bit about your different characters and these characterizations that you have, because I think it's, again, one of my favorite things about your comics is coming back and being like, oh, who's showing up today, right? Is it going to be Satan? Is it going to be Gary? Is it going to be Death?
Mhm.
Or your husband, showing up in these various ways? Like, how did you come up with them, and like, how did you develop their personalities over time? Because they have such distinct and lovable characters, I think.
Aw, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, Dot is a cartoon version of myself
Mm-hmm.
without eyebrows. But that's like the number one thing I get. Like, why don't they have eyebrows? I'm like,
Oh,
that's
it's
what
so
you're
funny.
noticing?
I've never even noticed that before you said that. Now I'm going to notice it all the time. But
Oh no. But yeah, I did Dot just because I'll admit I'm vain. I I insert
Mhm.
myself in situations all the time, so it was easy to take her and put things out there.
Hmm.
Death was probably my second character, and like my second continuous character.
Hmm.
I hate I keep going deep here. I try to
Oh, I
off
love it. That's
myself.
oh wow.
Yeah, back like way before the comic, but the first things with Death were flirtations with Death
Hmm.
and just like silly situations like I'm playing with a socket and a knife and Death is like, "Oh, that's hot." Like just stupid shit.
Mm.
Very early on stuff. It's not good. But it just developed into him hanging out and then Gary was of course for the Beast, but he slowly just became a recurring character because I thought he was cute and then became
Hmm.
my buddy. And then I like Satan just because of that little rebellion, my rebellion against God, I guess.
Hmm.
And God actually has a few comics where he stole a chicken nugget from me, and it's an ongoing feud.
Like the chicken and Peter and Family Guy, that kind of feud.
Kinda like, have you ever gone and got chicken nuggets and like you get a 10 piece, but they give you 11? And like how, how you feel blessed?
Uh-huh.
That was the comic. And then God yoinked back my 11th nugget. And ever since then, it's been war.
Oh god.
Yeah. So I guess really biblical figures. And then I have family and friends pop in occasionally if it works. But I guess a big one that you've mentioned was like Meeting of the Minds.
Yeah.
I really like thinking back, and I think everyone does.
Hmm.
If I was 12 and I saw me doing this, what would I think of myself? And I just like putting all of me in a room together and talking it out in some
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
So those
I mean,
have
it's literally
always
like a
been fun.
therapy exercise. Like, not even like saying that's
Kinda.
what you're doing, but like they encourage that. Like, I've been in ones where it's like, oh yeah, like talk to your 13-year-old self, or talk to your 8-year-old self, or whatever, these different parts, and like have conversations with them. So yeah, it makes sense that you're doing that.
Yeah. And like, especially during the teen years, how you change so much from like 12, 13 to your early 20s. Like,
Hmm.
I ha- I have a comic about butt stuff, and 16-year-old me is totally against it, where 20 something me is like all for it. And I have to explain you can't use hair conditioner as lube. Like, that's not going to work, you dipshit. But yeah, like the stupid things everyone does. And I think it's easier to admit through a drawing than to
Mhm.
tell someone face to face. Like right now, I wish I just showed you the comic. But yeah, those are always fun. And then I like making parodies of pop culture stuff a lot. The
Mhm.
best thing about the comic is I've never limited myself to any one genre, and
Hmm.
it's just whatever I'm feeling. And then I actually get kind of annoyed with myself if I have too many comics with Hubs, my husband, because as much as I enjoy couple comics and relatable or wholesome,
Hmm.
I really don't want to put myself in that corner because I'm not like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Hmm.
Like the wholesomeness is great, but it just feels like if I have to force being wholesome, it's just going to suck.
Well, yeah, and it's funny if I can even say this. Like, I think part of what, and I didn't think about this until you mentioned it, but I think part of what is so um, lovable about your comics is that they're like wholesomely dirty, like a lot of the time, if that makes sense. Like, there's this
Yeah.
like sweet like Disney element to them, and yet they are, uh, thinking about like you have the mermaid one where I think they bring you out. I can't remember what the comic is.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
where
The
where
sirens are
she
singing a song to her, and it's like, oh, it's like I clipped my fingernails or whatever it was.
yeah, the dudes don't get it, but she does cuz I came out in my comic and
Mm.
like Dot got it because the mermaid's gay or bi
Mm.
and gay bi pan, but the guys don't get it, so Dot gets it. And then her admitting in like part 2 that she's a catfish, so she doesn't think she's as
Mm.
pretty as she actually is, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
So I want that to be like come across. I'm okay with wholesome cuteness, but I just can't do vanilla wholesome cuteness.
Well, I think nobody would want that either. At least from you, I think that's part of what's so fun about it is like there's this like dance of all those different flavors. You have the personal, you have the sexy, but it always like stays within this space that doesn't feel like I'm just like, I don't know, looking at porn or some sort of erotica or something of that nature, right? It's like there's this playful element to it. I'm actually like really curious now that we're talking about it, like so from my perspective, I'll ask this question first and then I'll tell you what my like guess is, but I have no idea if this is true. Like, what are your major like artistic influences? Because from the outside looking in, my guess would be some combination of like Family Guy meets Disney, but I'm curious what like your own like influences are from your own perspective.
So growing up, I really liked Gary Larson and how he
I don't
can
know what it
take
is.
the Far Side comics.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah. So I really loved how he could take just one panel and say
yeah.
so much in just one frame. And like, just from a logistic, that guy got so much fucking work done because
Mm.
I'll spend hours on like 10 panels and he can do it in one. But
Oh.
he was a big one. And then I was very much a Disney kid growing up. I had the
Mhm,
Disney princesses in my room, so obviously Disney was a big influence. And then Family Guy, Adult Swim, like
mhm,
Robot Chicken and Ventura Brothers, like those more adult, naughty, mature themes definitely
mhm,
influenced. And then if you look really early on in the comic where it's really awful, but very
mhm,
thin, gangly looking characters, Tim Burton-y. Like none
mhm.
of it was really purposeful, but I was trying to find my own way
Right.
at that point. So kind of a mix of all of that together into whatever I have now.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'm curious, what is because it seems like you're fairly like connected with the other or a lot of the other cartoonists. I don't, but is that the appropriate name, cartoonists,
I would say
comic
so.
artists? Yeah,
Yeah.
and with the other cartoonists that are on Instagram, like what is that community like?
Oh, it's badass.
Yeah.
It is honestly the most wholesome,
Mm.
supportive, amazing group of people I've seen online. Like, if there is toxicity, I don't see it.
Toxicity.
Yeah, I can't say words. Like again, this is on you. Yeah, if there's any toxic nature in any of the chats, I don't see it. But we do all have chats together.
Hmm.
And another really big influence, I should say, is Cyanide and Happiness.
Hmm.
Like, I was reading their comics when I was in high school, supposed to be working,
Hmm.
but we were in like the college building. So they
Hmm.
didn't have filtered internet. So me and my classmates would just go on explosum.net and just send each other their comics. And
Hmm.
then fucking 10 years later, I got to collaborate with them. I actually shared a booth with them at Comic Con in San Diego last year. And they're the sweetest fucking guys. Like, they're so big. Like, they have games. They're just
Yeah.
wonderful. And then all the other artists, like, we're all talking about usually like algorithms or working with merchandisers or just what's been going on. So they're all very, very sweet and just down to earth people. Like, of course,
That's
there's always
awesome.
going to be the one or two that don't like partake, but I'm guessing it's just because they have so much fucking work on their plate, you know?
Mhm. Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, everybody's got
everyone's
life.
wonderful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool to hear. Yeah, I'm such a big fan of like all of these different comics from like Nathan Strange Pile to uh, what's the name of the Perry Bible Fellowship, and just like so many of these different ones that are just like they just crack me up, you know, and they bring so much joy to me. I think every day I'm really grateful for it, and I'm actually curious with because we talked a little bit about social media, but and so much of you know you all are sort of reliant on these platforms, and like one small tweak to the algorithm can really throw you guys for a loop.
Hmm.
How do you like navigate all of that? Do you just kind of just do your best to ignore it, or are you like sharing little bits of information? If you tweak a picture this way, then it's going to get more votes and like that kind of thing, or like how do you deal with that?
If we can share information with each other, like a few years ago, Instagram reached out to just a random amount of creators. I was one of them,
Hmm.
but it didn't matter the status. Like, people as low as 10,000 followers to as much as a million were reached out. It was just
Hmm.
random. But talking about like the algorithm changing from chronological to the computer led posts, like the algorithm, that's what I mean.
Hmm.
We will share that. So when I talked to the consultant with Instagram, I shared it back. A big thing at the time was getting verified because having
Hmm.
that blue check mark brings so much validation
Hmm.
to your work. And it's so much more harder now to get that little blue check mark unless you pay money for it,
Hmm.
ironically. So we share what we can, but honestly, with any update, like news updates we see, it's okay, how do we hunker down and combat it? When Instagram decided they're going to fight TikTok and do reels, all of us artists were fucked
Yeah.
because unless you have hours upon hours to animate your stuff, we're
Right.
not going to be seen anymore.
Hmm.
So it was really like, okay, I posted a reel today. I noticed a drop in engagements, comments. People say they didn't see any of my posts
Hmm.
and X, Y, and Z, or I posted a reel and then a comic in the same day, and this is what happened. Like, we're
Hmm.
all like feeding each other what we can to just move along and keep going.
Hmm. Got it.
Because it does feel like the algorithms are actively working against us because even when we even when we post what they want, our viewers don't want to see that, so they'll unfollow. And that's like, damned if we do, damned if we do, damned if we don't. And
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's a shame,
Hmm.
unfortunately. But
Yeah.
we're still going, like, everyone's
Hmm.
still making content and being seen by some of the population. It takes like one post to go viral, like
Hmm.
one social media manager on whatever platform to see you, and you blow up like I
Hmm.
did with George Takei.
Hmm.
And that was 4 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And has there been any conversation at all around like Web 3.0 and how that might shift things for you guys and your as creators in general? I don't know if you are familiar with that at all.
Maybe I know about like section 230 and how the government might change where platforms are liable for what people post. So they
Oh,
might
interesting.
stop, yeah, they might stop promoting the algorithm altogether. But
Hmm.
that just got to the Supreme Court in their hearing argument. So it won't be for another few months that we know anything. But I
Yeah.
don't know 3.0. So
Okay, so quick synopsis as best as I understand it. So Web 3.0 is out of the blockchain space. So
mhm,
part of the idea with this is that, for example, right now when I use Instagram, Instagram basically makes money off of me because they're getting all of my data, right? And so that's the trade. So
mhm,
the theory in part with like Web 3.0, for example, is that it's much more actually like creator and user beneficiary. So for example, if somebody might want to access my data, but they actually have to like maybe literally pay me for it. Or you could create up a social network that was literally designed so that like every time maybe somebody was going to your page, there was like a crypto wallet, for example, or some sort of currency that's like attached to that. And so like every time they're going to it, you're literally getting direct currency for that through the platform, rather than it being sort of being subjugated to like, Instagram, and then you have to kind of create things from it to do other things, but you'd actually get paid from direct use.
so like treating your profile as a website with ad space.
Yeah, yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I don't my gut reaction is, huh. It's kind of iffy. Like, I'm for making money, but at the same time, would that hurt viewers who like I understand what I put on a public platform is free. That is a done deal for me. So I don't know how it would hurt people that can only view my stuff that way. Is my concern, I guess.
Yeah, so in theory, I think it wouldn't be. And again, I don't know. There's probably a lot of like blockchain people are going to be like yelling at me after this, but like from what I understand, is it wouldn't really change the. It wouldn't be like behind just a paywall, so it wouldn't like turn everything into like a Patreon essentially. But it would be like, oh, like it's more or less public, and then but just it kind of cuts out like, for lack of a better word, like Instagram as the middleman. Like it allows like this space to be sort of owned by the creators, I guess, if you will.
Sure.
And so it's like you have an Instagram where all of the creators of any kind are getting benefits. So whether you're a large creator or a small creator, maybe you're just getting relative benefit from that, kind of in a similar way to almost just how YouTube operates more naturally, I guess,
Yeah.
but kind of more similar to that, I think.
Now, if it was like YouTube where there's an ad before you can see a drawing,
Mm,
no, no.
mm,
I would rather keep it as it is because getting ads, there's just so many.
yeah,
And like, I am more apathetic to ads now, where if I see it, like, you're actually on my shit list. I don't want to buy your stuff if you're shoving it down my throat.
yeah,
Good pun. But so I guess maybe I would have to look up on it more. But I do like the idea of people getting a little bit more ownership and getting money back. I just can't see like these monopolies willing to share fairly at this point. They're just too big.
yeah,
Anyone that quits their Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it's already done, man. Like they already got your info. You're not any sort of privacy anyone had was 10 years ago, you know?
yeah, yeah,
That's how I personally feel. I could be wrong, but like if the government wants to know what I'm buying on Amazon at 3 a.m., they're going to find out. Whether like I don't need to go on Instagram for them to know. They're going to know.
yeah.
So it's interesting. It's kind of dystopian and it sucks, but I don't want to be defeatist about it, but that's how I
Mm,
feel.
yeah. I always feel like this, like, I don't know, like a back and forth with it. Like, I feel like in some ways it's like, there's the like no one has any privacy anymore, and then there's like for me there's also, well, nobody has any privacy anymore, which means like there's no reason to hide anything, and
Mhm.
we are kind of like in a way like forced to be transparent. Like I have this kind of like ongoing joke with my friend who's like in politics that I feel like you won't be able to blackmail Gen Z because like everybody has nudes of each other and like knows all their weird sex stuff because it's just already all over the internet because they've been on the internet since they were like forever. And so it's like, well, how do you blackmail these people? They're already like fully out with everything
Pretty
and
much.
nobody cares. Yeah.
Or deep fakes. Deep fakes are getting crazy.
Yeah. That's the one that creeps me out for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. although it's kind of entertaining at the moment. Like I saw on yeah, hear me out, on TikTok. There's these Minecraft playthroughs, but it's with Obama, Biden, George Bush, and Trump,
Oh
and
my
they're all
god.
shitting on each other, and
Oh,
it's
that is
just so
hilarious.
funny. And, and it kind of sounds like them. So it's like,
That's
oh,
really
this is
funny.
hilarious. And then like one of them said bombing Russia, we're all fucked. Like
Oh god, yeah.
yeah, so they're but you're right. Like they're sharing so much already as preteens, teens, where you do not fully grasp but what you're sharing online.
Yeah.
You just kind of own it, which I guess is refreshing, but at the same time, thank God I wasn't online when I was 12.
Well, it's funny because I have a group of friends who I rave with who are all like kind of in Gen Z and like a little bit out of graduating college and stuff. And I'll talk with them about social media and how they see it. And it's so to me fascinating and refreshing talking to them because they, in my experience, have a lot like healthier relationship with it than we do as millennials because ironically, I think because they've it had it their entire lives. Like we had this weird effect where we were like we like kind of had the internet when we're like 5, 6, 9 years old, and then it's like social media kind of happens, and it's like we had this weird like, well, I'm kind of on social media, kind of not, but they've been on it since forever, and so
Mhm.
they're like, oh, like I understand how to like protect myself because I was bullied in junior high, right? Or like I had to worry about those things. So they like develop this skill set and comfortability with it that I think that they're going to be hopefully, I think really awesome if they use it right. Like, are you familiar with Mr. Beast at all on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah,
How old is he?
24.
Fuck. Like
Yeah,
he gives
yeah,
away millions of dollars.
yeah. And like he's talked on, I've seen him on I think two different podcasts where he's talked about like he plans on some level to probably run for president, uh, like in a few cycles. And it's like, yeah, like I don't see how anybody would like stop you because you're able to command such attention. You'll have all those people who are in their 14-year-old 12-year-olds now who will be 20 years old then.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, like that. And it's like they're actually like from my experience at least, and I just in the outside looking in, they mostly seem like really decent people who actually care about like wanting to make a difference rather than just like having it for the sake of power. So I'm hopeful that something will happen.
I definitely agree. Now, like I can't say I know his content and stuff. I know he got pushed back recently for paying for like 10,000 people's eye surgery so they weren't
Yeah.
blind anymore, and people were
Mhm.
pissed off about making money off of content. And it's like, you know what? Fuck you. He's putting it back into his work, but it's also like philanthropy. Oh my god. Philanthropy? No.
Philanthropy.
There you go. Like I have these words. I can say Worcestershire, no problem.
It's so
I can't.
funny.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
No, you're fine.
but he makes content off of doing good work.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. His politics, I have no idea, so I can't speak
Mhm.
on that. I just personally feel if we have a minimum age requirement to be in office, we should have a maximum. Like
Yeah.
no one over
100%.
75 should be in
Yeah.
office. You're
I
going to
agree.
die before you see these changes. Like
Yep.
that's my personal feeling.
No, I think that's what I think is funny. Like kind of almost going back to a point we had earlier, where like when I was talking about people when you actually have conversations with them are all a lot more rational and nuanced. Is like anybody that I talk to basically sees so many of the same exact problems and is upset about the same things, and then you have government on both sides who are just not dealing with any of those things. Like everybody's like, yeah, we need to set term limits, we need to set age limits, we should probably look at ranked choice voting versus just one person so that there's a like more neutral party that can win or more neutral people. Like there's all of these things that like people are like, yeah, like we really care about like these things, and that they're not being dealt with at all because the polls that are still there are dealing with identity politics and these extreme arguments that are like you know not
Yeah.
what most people actually care about.
Yeah, for sure. Like insider trading, like I very publicly lean
Hmm.
left, but fucking Nancy Pelosi for making money off of trading stock before it's like publicly known what's going on. Like, bitch,
Yeah.
like you can't stand on the soapbox and preach one thing and then have your hand behind your back and do the other. That's not
Yep.
cool.
Yep. Yep.
I don't mean to be political.
No, no, I think that's awesome, and I think yeah, I think there's a lot of people who feel like you. Like I have a friend who posts online a lot, and he's very very liberal, and unabashedly so, and I love him dearly. And people like asking him about Biden and stuff. He's like, look, like everybody that I know who is liberal basically is like, yeah, we all kind of feel like Biden's a tool, but like it's a lot better than their options. But like and it's like most people again don't necessarily aren't these extremes that you see on Twitter. And I remember like
Mm-hmm.
when Musk kind of first was taking over, and I was like, all right, let me see if this town hall thing will actually end up working. So I was like starting to become more active on there and like having conversations with people, and I was getting all these questions about things, and I was like, why do you believe this? Because this isn't what any of like these people who believe things about trans or whatever it might be actually believe. Like these are things that you are making up, or there's maybe a story that was told to you about this thing, but like nobody actually nobody cares about destroying the nuclear family. Like nobody cares about that. So like,
Yeah.
why are you making that an argument? And it's like they don't actually have an argument because that's just what's been sold to them for so long. And there's like, but there's no actual like dialogue with the people to question those things. So it can become like very, very frustrating. But I am hopeful, and I feel like we are moving towards a more, I don't know,
I think so.
complex space.
Like, I actually have a good story, like in terms of the comic, about being online versus talking to a person one
Mm,
on one. Like, when I was first posting on Reddit, it was brutal. Like,
mm,
it either did very well or very poorly, and
mm,
it was starting to be shared. And then I got a random message at like 2 o'clock in the morning saying, "Hey, I think you should see this because someone posted your comic and they're just dragging you."
mm,
And I clicked on it, and it was doing like, it was front page and it had thousands of comments, but the OP was, he was insulting me as a person. Like, I'll give him that the comic was shit. Like, it was not a good comic. It was my early work. It was not great. It was very basic. But they started talking about me, how I looked, how I talked, and I was sobbing.
oh my gosh.
And it just was not, it wasn't a feel good moment. But then I just had a thought, I'm like, I'm going to award this motherfucker. So I paid $6 or $10 or whatever you had to pay for Reddit to give an award, and I gave him platinum. And
Mm-hmm.
when you give someone an award on Reddit, it is sent anonymously unless you include your name or they respond back to you saying thanks or whatever, then they'll see it. So they got the platinum. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much. This is my first award. I really appreciate it. Made my day. And I just wrote back, you're welcome. Have a wonderful night. And then he saw it was me. And then that's when he's like, shit. And he's like, I'm sorry. In my defense, it's not a good comic, but I really didn't mean to hurt you. And touche for sending me an award and doing blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it's totally cool. I agree. It's a shit comic, but like, you hurt me, dude. You made fun of
Mm,
how I looked. And I get
mm,
it. Like, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm not my own cup of tea some days, but like, it fucked me up for a bit.
yeah.
But like, we had a conversation and he took down the
Mm,
post, and it was just like talking to someone on a human level instead of like pegging a target, if that makes sense,
mm,
you know?
yeah. Yeah.
So I try to kill them with kindness. Like, that's my motto. Even if I have to like smother them with a heart pillow. Like,
That's a great. I don't know if you have a comic that is that already, but I feel like that's one that you gotta have because that's
a
pretty funny.
very, very, very early one that I took down because I thought I would get banned for it. But
It's so
but
funny.
yeah, just talking to people as people and then realizing, ah, shit, I can't say that, because if you were willing to say that to someone's face,
Mm-hmm.
you're you're an awful person. And
Mm-hmm.
most people aren't. And we just forget that because we're responding to a little screen
Mhm.
of a human, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know there's a lot of like basketball players or athletes in general will say something to the extent of like, that like you would never say this to my face because I would punch you, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you're behind Twitter, and I'm Mr. Man, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's like, well, yeah, like you're just this anonymous blob that is just going to say whatever you want because there's no person. Yeah, I'm curious with the platinum exchange. Was that something that you like just came to on your own? Did you like go to friends and like get support and you're like, yeah, that's what you should do? Like, how did you come up with that? Because I would not have thought to do that, and I think that's a really cool story.
It was on my own because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and my husband came home like an hour later because he was bartending at the time and he gets home
Mhm.
late. So I was just sitting there, like reading comments, feeling sorry about myself. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to give him an award and make him feel shitty. Like I didn't have good intentions either. like I really didn't. But like
Uh-huh.
after having the conversation, like I don't hate that person. Like I actually
Mhm.
wish I saved our conversation because it was
Mhm.
very meaningful.
Mhm.
But we both came from like selfish sides. And I just took the upper hand because I spent money. So I'm the dumbass.
Did you
But
think it would
yeah,
lead to a conversation, or was it? Did you just like kind of
I
just
was
want to
really
control him
hoping.
underneath it?
I
Yeah.
think at the time I was really hoping he would respond so I could do the unmasking, like, haha, you know? But
Mm.
on the flip side, I was also thinking, well, it's already doing well. If I award it, it's going to do even better. Even if they're shitting on me, no press is bad press. So someone's going to
Mhm.
see the comic and they're going to like it,
Mhm.
even if everyone else is shitting on it. My name will get out there.
Yeah.
So I don't I must have been drunk, man. Like I don't think I was drinking that night, but I was just like in a fuck it kind of attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that moment do you feel like that created like more like almost like online resilience for yourself of just kind of being like, I really don't care what people on the internet feel about me anymore? Or was there any sort of like a breakthrough in that?
Yes and no. I think it was like my first layer of a thicker skin
Hmm.
because I've gotten of
Hmm.
a lot of feedback, and some of it has not been pleasant, especially like on Reddit or Twitter,
Hmm.
where moderating comments are up either to the mods of the subreddit or just not there at all. Like you can say
Hmm.
whatever the fuck you want as long as you're not like actually threatening them, you know?
Right.
But I do think it was a turning point where it's like, you know what? No matter what I do, not everyone's going to like me. I'm putting myself out there sexually, which kind of puts me on like a bigger target in the first
Hmm.
place because people are going to make assumptions,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But I need to get over it. Like, there's so much stuff out there, anyways. Like, I might as well just be authentic because I won't be loved by everyone, you know? And I
Hmm.
know I can't draw hands. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I still can't draw hands.
I would never
Um,
even think about that. So I can't draw at all. So the fact that you can draw anything is a marvel to me.
like, I'm dyslexic too. So when people point out, like, you drew this guy's hand backwards, I'm like, fuck, you're right. I'm like, but I wasn't thinking.
That's really funny.
Yeah,
Do you
so
know
it
who?
was a turning point.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you. Do you know who like Todd McFarlane is of Spawn? Of Spawn?
Oh, that rings a bell so big. Let me look it up. Don't tell me. Hold on. I'm sorry if you have to cut this, Todd.
And I feel like I definitely have to leave this part in then.
Now I just got. Yeah. Okay, he's more of a traditional comic artist.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He left Marvel. at one point, and he created Image Comics. Which, if I don't, do you read comics? Like, do you like? Are you into like contemporary graphic novels or anything of that nature?
Yes and no. Like never
Okay.
really like Marvel or DC.
Hmm.
That always felt like more of a boys thing. Now that I'm an adult, I'm much more into it.
Yeah.
But growing up, it was much more of like the newspaper funnies,
Yeah.
you know. And then
Mm.
web comics were big. Looking for Group by Blind Ferret was
Hmm.
probably like my first long form comic my dad introduced me to.
Huh.
They actually have a death type character named Richard, and there's a parody where they have Richard singing a parody song of the Little Mermaid's Part of Your World, but he's going through
Hmm.
and he's just murdering an entire village, including like children. It was
Oh my god.
amazing. It's very
Wow.
funny. But but I'm slowly getting into like long form superhero, that kind of stuff now.
Okay. Cool. Now I was just curious because I'm a big fan of like Brian K. Vaughan's work. If you read like Saga or Why the Last Man, but
Yes.
those are okay. Cool. So those are both Image Comics, and this is a long roundabout to get back to Todd McFarlane. The reason I brought him up was that
Mhm.
so he when he was drawing Spawn, somebody had mentioned like he would come up to him and like were criticizing him and like, why is Spawn's pocket, on his jacket on this side versus the other side? And in the moment he was just like, well, actually it's that his cape is always like is actually alive, and so it's moving and constantly adapting. So he ended up like using the fact that he wasn't paying attention to his art as sort of an aspect of the character in their creation.
That's awesome. Like I am almost famously bad for my typos and my grammar, and I swear to God, I do try to proofread it. But like I'm either running against a deadline or I don't like sound it out word for word
Hmm.
and I'll mess it up somehow. And people call me out, and I've just said it's part of my brand.
Hmm.
That's just what you get. If I ever publish a book, there will be typos. I will not have an editor on purpose. But it's so true. Like today for a comic, Dot cuts the pineapple in half and she pulls a knife from the knife block. And I had to go back because my artist brain was like, you didn't actually erase that knife. You have to make it where it looks like it's an empty knife slot. So I spent another 10 minutes going through three other panels, fucking drawing it over because someone will point it out.
Mm.
Like it I feel bad for Todd. Like everyone gets that, and I'm sure like comic book fans, as much as I appreciate it because like there's such a love for it, they're also like the most pickiest bastards of all the bunch. My husband included. Like my husband does the same. So I will still fuck a comic nerd. Just
Yeah, actually, just out of curiosity, are you and your husband, are you like in some sort of a like more is it open dynamic or polyamorous relationship or anything like that? Or are you two? Are you monogamous or
we're
if you're open to talking about
monogamous.
that, monogamous?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We Well, I came up with the phrase, "You're allowed to appreciate the art, just don't touch it."
Hmm.
And it's just personally for us, we're very, very happy together. Like
Hmm.
sexually, we're very compatible. I am very open about my sexuality just because I'm a sexual person. And he
Hmm.
is too, but I'm just overdrive.
Hmm. Hmm.
So anytime like I post something much more explicit, especially on Patreon, I'll talk to him about it. But when it comes to our day to day life, we are monogamous with each other. Because if I'm being completely honest, I still get insecure. I can't handle more people.
Hmm.
But I came out after I was married to him,
Hmm.
and it's to me, and I hope he feels the same way. He accepts it as the same way. I don't know his heart of hearts, but I feel like it's true. But I feel so safe with him
Hmm.
to admit that I I'm attracted to women. I like being with women, and I've never shared that before because
Hmm.
of the conservative religious background shame, you know? So being able, feeling comfortable expressing that to him and then putting it in the comics is like, I feel safe with you to say that.
Hmm.
And I
That's
don't
really
want
cool.
anyone else because you're the one that made me feel safe, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
Cool.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you
Also,
for sharing. That's awesome.
boobs are nice, man. Like,
They are. They are. I was talking to someone and she was just like, yeah, I just don't like boobs. And I was like, how do you, I didn't know that it was like, I thought it was like bacon. Like everybody, I thought it just like loves that thing regardless of like what preferences you have. Like, how do you not like boobs? But
they're just so jiggly.
yeah, they're wonderful. They're soft. Yeah.
They're soft, they're comforting, they provide food. Like, like it's an like a whole experience in one, two,
Yeah.
three if
Yeah.
you're lucky. Sorry, that was too
no,
much.
no, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. Well, I mean, trying to think if there's anything else. I feel like I've asked you so many awesome questions. This has been such a rad conversation to have, and I'm so grateful to get to have it with you. Is there, I don't know, is there anything that you wanted to talk about or share at all? I'm just throwing a random question out there, but I'm just curious, or that you would want your audience to know about you.
I plan on getting a Gary tattoo. I just,
Yeah.
yeah, like I have several tattoos, but I have a hidden Mickey behind my ear because like I said, I was a Disney kid and I love.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a hidden Mickey years ago, and then I got all of my younger siblings their tattoos. I
Mm-hmm.
paid for all of them to have hidden Mickeys because they're like, I want one too. I'm like, I'm going to buy that for you. And we're going to go to the same tattoo place that I got mine. So that's neat. But I kind of love the idea of hidden Garys.
Mm-hmm.
I have those in my comics. So I'll have a little Gary shape somewhere in the comics most days, which is fun. So I don't know. That's been in my mind. Outside of that, I'm sorry for rambling. I'm sorry for mispronouncing words. God damn it. Even that. Like I swear
Mispronouncing,
it's
mispronouncing.
yeah. And I'm sorry if I got off topic. Like it really was a good conversation and my mind just bounced to different ideas. So I'm sorry if it came off as rambling at any point.
Oh no, not at all. Like not for me at least. Like this was awesome. Like I loved where we went. We went to so many different places I couldn't have predicted, and that's the fun part of it. I love. I think that's why I'm calling this podcast "Getting to Know You" because it's like I would have these conversations with strangers and having such deep complexities. And I think for me, like what I value most in the world is perspective. And the only way that I feel I can get that really is when I'm talking with somebody and I can ask the questions that I want to ask and see how somebody else who's different from me sees the world. And yeah, so I'm really grateful that you got to share and be on here. This has been such a blessing and treat. I'm really grateful for it.
Oh, yeah, like, one of my favorite aspects of the comic, and I say this a lot, is, like, I've talked to people that I've never dreamt that I would have the chance, like, it
Hmm.
was my mom's birthday a few days ago, and when I first started the comic, I asked everyone to say happy birthday to my mom, and
Hmm.
it was overwhelmed with responses, and I did the same this year, and there was so many. My mom asked me, like, "Can you take a screenshot or print out everyone's responses?" But there was, like, over 3,000 responses of people saying happy birthday from, like, Jamaica, Belgium, the Netherlands, like, so many people, and it's just like, "Thank you for wishing my mom a happy birthday," and fuck, they're like, "You like my comic from there?" Like,
Yeah,
that's just it's so cool, and
yeah.
I love your idea for the podcast, and I hope it really does well.
Thank you. Well, I think if we get to have more conversations like this, and I think it will. I think I think one of the things that I want to be tackling and what I get to tackle is like interviewing people like yourself. I think there's so many of these uh, for lack of a better word, like niche creators, right? That aren't like the Tom Cruises of the world and these like large famous people, but are famous within these like communities, within the comics groups. Or I'm a really big video gamer, so there's a lot of like video game YouTubers that I would love to interview and just have these kinds of conversations because I think that they're really cool. Yeah, so I appreciate that.
Oh, of
One
course.
thing I was actually thinking is like it would be really cool if you maybe did, or I would be curious to see what would happen if you like challenged your audience to all get a Gary tattoo with you, and see how many people you can inspire to get a tattoo.
There is one person who already has a Gary tattoo that I drew for them. You've watched SpongeBob, right?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So on an off day, I made a drawing of Gary on Gary the snail,
Hmm.
and he had a oh, what are those little, like the little things that you put on your thumb for sewing?
Oh, a thumbnail? Is that what they're called? Or
I don't think
thimble?
a
Thimble.
thimble. There we go.
Yeah.
Like a thimble on his hat, and then he had a toothpick for a joust. She got that
Hmm.
tattooed, and I redrew it for her. So there's one person in the world who has it. It made that was my bucket list. That's how I knew I made it. I'm like, I'm done. I don't need a book. I don't need a TV show. Someone fucking tattooed their body with my butt plug. I, so
I
I
think I
think I
would get
might.
one. I don't even have any tattoos yet, but I'm like I have like a collection of tattoos that I'd want to get, and I think if you were like, yeah, I'm getting it, especially if you were like, it's going to be like a tribe thing, like people get one, I would think I would totally get one.
Well, I'm gonna have to do it. Even and, like, don't feel like you have to, but like,
Well, I
I'm
wouldn't say
I
that if
am
I felt obligated, but yeah.
I'm totally getting a Gary tattoo. Like, it's been on my mind for months, but like it's been a thought, like, where do I put it? Because I asked my husband, I'm like, I want to get a Gary tattoo. And he's like, I don't know if I want to fuck you and look at Gary while I'm fucking you. I'm like, that's a good point. I get that because I'm not going to see my ass. You will see my ass.
That's really funny.
And just a little Gary smile right back at him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good idea. I'll have to do that. And then when this comes out, let me know so I can hype it up as well. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely will. So I want to circle back to something that you mentioned earlier, and that was your I guess dealing with some level of suicidality before. And I've had a couple other people on the show really talk about that. So I'd love to hear your experience if you're open to sharing of what that was like for you. Like, were you planning, or were you thinking? What were you actually like dealing with in those moments?
Sure. Well, for one, I was ignoring a lot of like the signs where like hopelessness or like the void of just having like concrete emotions. I wasn't ever very happy. I wasn't ever very sad, except what's the right word? I was just there. And the idea is like, okay, it wouldn't be so bad if I jumped off a bridge, or it wouldn't be so bad if I took all of these pills. Like, it wasn't malicious in any way, but it just, they would crop up and I would think about it. And then I would think, you know what? I'd just go to sleep and I wouldn't wake up. Like, it would be a resolution, you know? So when I actually tried to do it, I remember it vividly because I was I was eating In and Out. I'm like, this is going to be my last meal. It's In and Out. That's not a bad thing. Like, there's worse last meals. In and Out's not too terrible. But I I cut my wrist pretty deeply, and obviously I'm fine, but had to be at the doctors, and then family got involved because I was already living in California. And unfortunately, it got to be a big to do, which, like, that's the last thing you want when you plan to off yourself, you know? A big thing that I did think about, like, if I'm going to do this, I don't want anyone to find me because I know what it will do to them, but I also don't I don't want them to leave them wondering, you know? So it became a bigger deal where, all right, fuck, fine. I have to deal with all these issues now and going on medication and therapy. And it does work, but it almost was like worse at first, you know? Trying to find like pills that work because they put me on like 40 milligrams of Prozac. and I was not a human. Like I was functioning, but there was nothing. And then therapy trying to drag out everything I was feeling at the time and trying to explain it without sounding pathetic and working through it. And it was a lot, honestly, it was a lot harder than trying to cut my own wrists. But it just,
Do you think go ahead.
oh no, I'm going to circle. So,
Oh, that's okay.
yeah.
Just gonna ask, like, is was that I would say the it being easier to cut your own wrists, was that I would say part of the seduction of killing yourself versus like dealing with whatever it was that was kind of creating those feelings?
Like there was no like glorification. Honestly, it was just the closest thing at the time. Like I was while I was eating, I was thinking, today's the day, man. And just didn't have any medicine in the house. Don't believe in having firearms, but I did have some kitchen knives, and like I didn't feel any pain. That's the crazy thing. Maybe it was like adrenaline, but I just went down the street, if that can be allowed. But I didn't feel I didn't feel anything. It was just it was going to happen. There was no sexiness or like relief. It was like, okay, it's done. Like just checked off the list, you know?
So when you did it though, it sounds like you ended up going to the hospital and that kind of thing. So obviously, did you like, oh shit, like I don't actually want to do this and like backed out, or like what happened in that moment? Like how did you go from planning to kill yourself and taking the action, then not doing it yourself here?
I don't want to mention names because I don't speak with those people anymore, but I was stopped and yeah, I was seen and they contacted family who came came down because they lived like 8, 9 hours away, and that's where it became a big to do. So if no one was there, probably would have been successful. And I'm glad. I'm very glad I wasn't. I needed help, and even though I don't talk to that person who stopped me, I'm very thankful for them for being there. I I I am forever grateful. Yeah. So I thought it would be a lot easier to explain because, if you don't mind me saying, like we talked about this on a break and how I didn't really have a chance to explain it, but I don't mention it in my comics for the reason that I can't risk my livelihood for explaining that situation, but I wish I have because I know a lot of people, especially nowadays, struggle with it. And it shouldn't be ignored, but unfortunately, how platforms are built, they will punish people for quote unquote idealizing self harm when it's not idealizing, it's just explaining, what we were going through. But medication therapy, ongoing medication and therapy help a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and thank you for sharing all of that. Do you mind? I would love to hear about like when was there something that was like for you that you were like dealing with? Was there like a traumatic event that was kind of spawning that moment, or was there a just kind of like a brain chemistry, like depressive brain kind of thing coming over you? Like, what was it? I guess that led you to even starting to want that. Like, yeah,
I think both. I didn't like myself very much at the time. I didn't like my body. I didn't like who I was or where I was going in my life because I always thought at the time, I thought I was going to have an artistic career, and I cornered myself into the business side. So I didn't like that. But also, I definitely have a chemical or two missing to make me a happy person. So I was just deficient, like someone is deficient in vitamin B. I was deficient in my body working in a way to be content, but not getting help early on. So I was newly in Southern California, didn't have a lot of friends, definitely didn't have family, and I was isolated, not many people to talk to. It definitely like compounded how I felt. And then I lost my sister when I was 11 and never fully came back from that because my family kind of broke apart after. Understandably, we're all good now.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
But like you don't talk about those traumas because for fuck's sake, seeing my mom hold a dead baby, it's not good. You just you deal as you can, but I never got the help that I should have, and not nothing on my parents. They did an amazing job, but as an adult, I ignored it, and it just compounded.
No.
Yeah.
When you were having those experiences, and I'll preface this with kind of why. Like, so I've with the two other people I talked to, both of them to a certain degree talk about, I don't want to say like voices because that's not necessarily how it is, but like one of them that I talked to like literally said he would hear like a voice like literally telling him to kill himself, and it was like literally like, had this kind of like seductive tone to it.
Hmm.
I think my other friend who talked about it talked about really this kind of loud, voice in his head or just series of thoughts that is basically telling him to kill himself. That now he's like, this is just a depressive episode. He knows how to deal with it. It really, really sucks, but he can kind of like weather the storm. Is do either of those experiences, or was there a similar type of thing that was going on internally, I guess, for you with when that was happening?
Yes, and I apologize if this like comes off crass, but it is it reminds me of like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, where it wasn't necessarily a different voice, but it was my voice. It was my voice talking to myself. Like, if you just did it, like you're not gonna be in this like limbo anymore, this purgatory where you don't feel anything. Cause that's the worst part is like not feeling anything except just like despair. And despair is not even the right word. It's just like you realize like you're lacking your humanity because nothing would touch me and I couldn't cry. So I would talk to myself and be like, well, if you jumped off a bridge tomorrow, like it's just over with, we're done. And there is no heaven or hell. So why don't you do it? And then it's like, but you got your mom and you got your siblings and you got your best friend and you have life. You can go about it, but it's so much work and it's so heavy. I don't want to carry this. So yes and no. I guess like I would have these internal debates.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. Yeah. My friend Brett, who talked about it, he said that he, from his experience, there was literally like there was like kind of a devil on one shoulder, angel on the other shoulder, who would be having this debate back and forth. And at one point, he had kind of decided to do it, and then I guess the angel on his right, goes, yeah, you can, do it, but like just, maybe just like wait a day. And then it was like him waiting a day ended up leading to a series of other events in his life that like led him completely away from that, and finding purpose and that kind of thing. It's just, I know it's very enlightening, I think is the right word, to hear you and my other friends talk about this. So I really, really appreciate you sharing and talking about it.
I'm glad I can share it in some way. Like I said, I hate that I can't share it on other platforms. Like because death is a big part of my comic, I I feel like I always keep people on red because I can't tell them like this is why death's a part of it because I had a flirtation with death. Like I was fucking knocking on his door at 2 fucking AM in my panties. Like
Yeah.
it it's an important part of my life. And I think I have a scar on my wrist that I look at every so often. I'm like, you dumb bitch. But it's shaped who I am. So I'm glad to talk about it. And I hope anyone that is feeling like that or have those ideas, honestly, you're not alone. And I know that they don't want to talk about it or share because you feel like you're drawing attention. That's the last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself. But it's okay. It's okay to talk to someone. You're not going to be you're not going to be perceived negatively by people who love you because they want to help you. Like they want you to be here. That's the reason why they're going to talk back. Like you're not a burden, I guess is the right word. This is the first time I've actually shared this on like any kind of platform. So I appreciate you asking and listening. And I'm sorry, it's like I keep apologizing. I should fucking stop
You
that.
do.
I apologize a lot, man.
I'm so sorry for apologizing so much.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not 1 inch Canadian either. I don't even like maple syrup. Fuck maple
Oh my
syrup.
god. You don't
I'm
like maple
sorry.
syrup, like, for real?
No, I hate pancakes.
Oh my god. I mean, I
Why
don't eat
would
them
you?
anymore, but they are
What?
delicious.
No. Why would you eat a pancake when you have waffles? There's
Okay,
texture.
I do like waffles better. I
Okay.
am a huge, like, chicken and waffles fan. It's, like,
Ooh,
my
yeah.
absolute jam. There's a great place out here in Seattle, so if you ever come visit, I will take you there. It's called Fats Chicken and Waffles, and it's, like, the best chicken and waffles I've ever had.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. Anything else that you wanna share on that topic?
Don't do it. Don't do it. Get help. You are loved, even if you don't feel like it. And that burden to carry is worth carrying because it was a few years later that I started the comic and I found the love of my life and I am I'm going to cry that
Great.
I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life and I never thought I deserved to be so happy or so loved. So, it's worth it. Just do it. Don't hurt yourself. So, that's it.
Awesome.
But those waffles sound great. Oh my goodness.
If it makes you feel better, you're the second person I've gotten to cry on the show so far, so.
Oh, thank God, I'm not the first.
Perfect. One other thing I want to ask you was, like, what, if anything else, is like, do you have any like other projects that are like in the work? Like, are you planning on releasing a book or developing one or anything of that, or are you pretty much just like really dialed in with Instagram right now?
I'm I am focusing on the comics right now. Like I feel after after I got let go from my job, it's been a very hard adjustment working full
Hmm.
time creatively because I feel the pressure now. I don't have that income to fall back on. So it's like, is this funny? No, that's not fucking funny. Is that funny? And then I'll find something that I like and I'll throw myself into it. And then I didn't sleep for 12 hours. So I'm still trying to figure out a schedule, but I'm hoping to do more like Comic Cons to offer more merch, maybe not like plushies because I have to work with a manufacturer,
We
but
really got to
more.
find that sex toy company that can make a Gary butt plug. There's like no
I
reason for one to not exist. Like, that just seems silly to me.
It is like the number one request I get. Like people are legitimately asking, like, "Can I actually wear Gary?" Like, it's like if I could, and then I do have he's not green, but I've had low key. I've had people offer like 10 grand to buy my butt plug, and I'm like,
Wow.
oh man, it was very hard to say no. It was it was very hard to say no, just because it's like that feels like a line I'm not ready to go. You know,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a good amount of money. I mean, yeah, I probably would have, but everybody has their own boundaries. So I get that.
it was a couple days of thinking. But yeah, that is definitely something that I have been thinking about. Maybe I'll just reach out to the people that have given me toys and see if, because I still have a good relationship with them. But
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they'd be down to collaborate with something if. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have a cat in the background?
I do have a cat. I don't know if she's in the background right now, but I do have
I
a
saw
cat
a
if she
black
is
and
running
white
around.
tail, I think.
Oh, not black and white. She's a Siamese. And you wouldn't have seen her tail because sadly it was like crushed before I got her. So
Oh
she has like a broken tail.
no. Oh,
Yeah. So
poor baby.
she's 14. Will be 15 this year, and yeah, she's a little Siamese, little cute
Oh.
baby. Yeah.
Well, then you got something going on in the back. Just be careful. Like,
Yeah. Well, I'll look for her. I mean, she might have
yeah,
like walked around. You might have seen her.
probably.
Oh, and actually, I should ask this earlier, but like, where did you come up with the name the Red Dot?
Oh, this is a good one. So my husband, he he has a PhD in English. He majored in poetry, and then like his thesis was on romantic feminism. So
Mhm.
I love him to death. He's like, I'm a feminist. I'm like, I'm a woman. So like, so he makes beautiful poems, and he's published, he's authored a few books. He's great. And but to like slightly rib him, I created poems when I was on my period, and I said they
Mhm.
were by the Red Dot, trying to be like avant-garde
Mm.
bullshitty. So like,
Mhm.
oh, painful hips, chocolate chips, fat chick, fat chicks, bullshit. That was like a Red Dot poem. Like I was just fucking around. So when I started the
Mhm.
comic, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to use that because that's just kind of the vibe that I felt worked. Like it's sincere, but it's not, and it's fun. And I got red hair, so might as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You do have the red hair. I feel it's definitely been a signature. Have you always been a redhead?
Nope. I'm a
No.
blonde.
Okay. Do you ever feel like trapped now that you're like redhead? I mean, you wear it very well, and it seems like something you love. So I don't think it would be something that pigeonholes you. But I'm curious if you're ever just like, oh man, I'm like, I have to be a redhead now.
No, like for a while, like in 2021, I dyed it purple for funsies,
Mm.
and that was great. But I've been dyeing my hair red since I was like 15.
Oh wow.
And I do feel like it suits my features. Like my my ethnicity is English Irish, so
Hmm.
my skin tone allows it. So I
Hmm.
don't think so, but if I dyed my hair like black tomorrow, I would still be red dot. But I
Yeah.
can't see myself doing it. I like my hair this color.
Cool. Cool. Well, Kim, it was such a pleasure having you on the show, and this was an absolute blast for me. Where can people find out more about you if they want to follow you?
Sure. Well, thank you. And I had a lot of fun too. Again, I apologize for mispronouncing words as I continue to do so, or rambling. But if people want to follow me and see less of me rambling, they can go to Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, the double underscore red dot.
Hmm.
I'm also on Reddit and YouTube and TikTok. Basically, if you can Google the red dot comic, I will come up.
Cool.
I've made
Awesome.
the front page of Google with those exact words. Those exact words.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Perfect, Kim. Well, it was such a pleasure having you on, and I'll talk to you again soon.
that sounds great. Thank you.